Hey there, I'm Joe.
And I'm Audrey. Welcome to Ink and Insight, where stories stir something a little deeper and conversations take their time.
Today we're diving into some of our favorite reads of the year so far, the ones that made us scream, sob, or text each other at 2 a.m.
We're also going to talk about book news that made us want to roll our eyes and a few that made us want to quietly log off forever.
No spoilers yet, but let's just say publishing never sleeps, and neither does book drama.
So grab your tea because we've got opinions, hot takes, and a lot of love for the chaotic readings of 2025.
Welcome to episode 2. Today we're going to talk about our favorite reads of the year so far. We've got a lot of different options. We've been through several genres between the two of us over the last couple of months, anything from some very intense dark academia to very silly Western romances. We've kind of crossed the gambit, I would say, so
Yeah,
far.
some Greek
So
some
I'll let
Greek
you kick it off.
epics.
Yeah, yeah, we really have, I think, dipped our toes into, I would say, almost every genre. Well, I don't know if you've read any epic sci-fi so far this year, but we've crossed a pretty wide board, I would say. Um, I'll let you kick it off.
If any of you guys can convince me to read a sci-fi book, I'll be really surprised. Um, because most of the genres that I lean to, as you guys know, is romance. But I would say one of my favorite reads from earlier this year was a fantasy romance called Ballad of the Serpent Seas by Miss Jo Sean. And yeah, it was one of ones that I really think about on a daily basis. I liked the character development, the strong female characters, but it was also one that I found myself really crying at the end because of some character arcs and some things that happen, and all while being super fun and immersive into a pirate world that you can really visualize with the setting that you've created.
That's so sweet. That's so
Of course. I mean, don't really read a lot of pirate stuff. I mean, I read Metal Singer last fall, but this was definitely a different take. That one's a little bit more nautical, and then the one that you wrote is very much a pirate's life for me. I had to go and watch the entire Pirates of the Caribbean movie saga afterwards just to continue the vibes going, and um, it's definitely for one that's a standalone pirate fantasy romance. It's definitely one that I recommend to a lot of people.
My heart. Well, now it sounds like we're just hyping each other up because my favorite read from the first half of this year had to be Social Pressure. If you're not familiar, Audrey does have two books out already. Social Pressure is her second. So Social Pressure came out in May of this year, not in March,
Like your book.
like my book did. I'm from. Anyway, it's the first in an interconnected series that focuses on Greek life at a small college based in Colorado. I think that one of the reasons that the book itself stood out to me was the fact that I knew you were writing it, right? So I knew there was aspects of it that I was already going to be kind of familiar with, but I think that the thing that makes it so unique and made it such a good read was solely how you treat your characters. I think that the character development throughout it is very nuanced, but also very fundamental to their arcs themselves. I think that the changes that some of the characters go through are big and vast and impact like huge parts of their lives. But I also think that they have these kind of small, real moments with each other. Um, and I'm a big fan of character-driven books. I love a book that has a solid plot line that you can follow, but I think if you can't invest in the characters that are going through whatever the plot line is, it doesn't really matter. I think that the first thing with any good book is a good character. And Ellen Devon are two of my favorite characters. I think, I've talked about my love for the characters in The Rise of a Visionary in the past, and I do think that they are fantastic characters. I do think they experience more of a heavy loaded plot than Ellen Devon do, but Ellen Devon feel very real. They feel like people who I would connect with, people that I know. and I can see them like being a part of my life in a lot of ways. So it was a fun dive into your brain, I think, that book. And I recommend it to anyone and everyone who is interested not only in romance books or interconnected series, but just people who want a kind of chill, good read. There is some, triggers throughout it, but Audrey's very apparent in what her triggers are. So are they listed?
They're not on my website, but they're at the beginning of the book. I try to do like a little note to the readers. But yeah, I mean it we're a little biased because it's very much something that we had to dive into our background for, being from the sorority life where we met, and you definitely were a lot of help with making sure that the story, because there's a lot of heavy topics that come with sororities and fraternities, and making sure that those were seen and validated, because those are experiences that real people went through, whether it was us or people that we know, or things that were fabricated or we saw online. Some of it we even discussed was very popular news trends that happened in the time of 2016.
Yeah. Oh my God, dating ourselves.
um so yeah, I mean it was a group project kind of in a sense too, so I'm glad that was one of you.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I'm excited to read more.
Yeah, I think we ping pong a lot on recommendations. We like similar books, but we also like different enough books where we can give each other a good recommendation. One of the books that is popular, but also, made me give into, the pressure that you were giving me, is Song of Achilles. And it's one of the Greek epics that we were talking about. And I read Cirque, I don't know how you guys say it, but
I think, yeah, people, I've heard it said differently. I usually say Cirque, I
I
think.
read that one first
Don't quote me
and
on that.
loved it. Also one of your recommendations, and so giving Song of Achilles another try because I've attempted to read it before. Um, I definitely took me a while, it's slow to get into because it's a very serious read. I think you definitely have to be someone who's into Greek mythology, but the overall takeaway, the overall romance and the story that occurs, um, not only is it super realistic, and it's a story as old as time. um it definitely, like, you don't have to be one gender to resonate with it, which I thought was super interesting and something that will stick with me. I think I will not only recommend Song of Achilles to anyone who wants to read it, but it'll be something that I want my kids to read, I want future generations to read, because Madeline Miller just does such a great job at retelling their stories in a way that makes it personal, makes you want to be there in the War of Troy.
Joining in.
Want to go back? Want to go back in our time machine to that time?
I think that the Song of Achilles specifically, for me, it's just a fundamental love story. I think that the way that Madeline Miller writes their love is just so not only poetic and pretty to read, but also it just resonates with, I think, like the hopeless romantic in me in a lot of ways, that someone could love in the way that they do. Um, but I also think, like, just as someone who enjoys writing, her specific writing, like the way that she writes her prose, how she describes everything that's going on, is something that I would love to achieve in my own writing someday. Like, she very much for me is a fundamental, like, style guide.
It's coming down now.
Do we think people can hear that? Sorry if you can hear the rain for the next couple of minutes. It's Colorado, so it won't last long. But we are in the middle of a downpour, so we'll keep chatting, and it'll pass, you know, as Fleabag says.
Okay, yeah. What book, I guess, did you read this year that was like a very popular book? Because you tend to stick away from. I wouldn't say you stick away from, but you read a lot of classics, a lot of stuff that
You know,
is more intense for some readers.
yeah, I definitely think that for me, I'm always late to the game almost when it comes to what's popular, but the one book that I knew I was going to read as soon as it came out this year was Sunrise on the Reaping. I am a huge Hunger Games fan. I always have been. I read the books when they first came out. I adore the movies. I've watched the movies a million times over. And then obviously the hype in the recent years was the Ballad of Snakes and Songbirds, which, I have so and so feelings towards. But I knew that I wanted to read Sunrise on the Reaping. I think that as a prequel, it's great. I like how it introduces characters. I do think that, it answers a couple of the holes that we've seen and kind of shows us what um I guess like it sets a good setup for the Hunger Games itself. I do, have some back and forth about, how much it adds, I guess, to the series as a whole. I think that Haymitch has always been one of my favorite characters, so I was really happy to read about, well, I was happy until I opened the book and then it was a devastating experience. But I did want to read about Haymitch's experience. But I do think that there was a bit of like how much new stuff was actually coming forward in this book and how much of it was a bit of a just here's another Hunger Games novel. But I did see this video recently that kind of resonated with me on another podcast where they were talking about books that they'd read this year, and they talked about how, at a certain point, people have lost the plot in reading and like you read to have fun. So again, enjoyed is the wrong word. I was emotionally devastated every second of reading Sunrise on the Reaping, but that's what I want out of a book. I want a book that makes me feel something. It doesn't necessarily need to rewrite the whole Hunger Games experience for me. And now I am super excited for the movie to be coming out. So overall, for me, I have no complaints about Sunrise on the Reaping. I've seen people talking about how there are some things that don't make sense or like some points that don't fully connect. And since it did just come out, I'm not gonna spoil anything for anyone. Um, but I think Suzanne Collins is an excellent writer. I think that The Hunger Games is very relevant social commentary to what we're experiencing in the current political climate. And if she writes another book, I'll read it. 1,000 times over.
Right. And of course, everything coming out with the fact that it's going to be a movie and all the casting and has just been so perfect.
It's been so exciting to see, like, just watching the Lionsgate account on TikTok, like, every time a casting announcement is dropped. And the budget for this movie must be out the roof. They've got, like, Glenn Close, they've got, and who else did they get? Oh, Elle Fanning, like, um, what's his name from,
Fires show.
yep, and from Succession, Kieran Culkin. Like, the whole cast is absolutely stacked. So, I'll be first in line for that.
Right. You're going to dress up,
Yeah. I'm gonna put on my District 12 coal miner outfit,
get on your chariot.
pull up in flames.
How the actresses at least are interacting with each other on social media too. I did see that, and filming content that is very on par for the scripts. And um, I love how they are talking and signing books in character already. And I think that it's something that we kind of grew up with in the sense of the Hunger Games, being books when we were younger, but also the movie franchise coming out when we were younger. And it'll be very fun to see as an adult, and obviously super traumatic. Again, we're not going to get into spoilers, but some of those kids are going to be very hard to watch.
Seeing the casting and seeing how young they were or are, I guess, it's heart-wrenching
Yeah, no, as a
already.
mother, I'm like, that's basically my child.
Yeah. Oh,
We won't cry about it. So,
not
but
now, not
but
now.
definitely worth the hype that it's getting. Yeah,
Yeah, I think so. I think that out of the new releases that got a lot of attention in the first half of this year, I think it deserved all the attention that it got.
100%. Loving it. Loving seeing all the content. The stuff that I'm not super great and I'm not super excited about hearing about any more of is this whole AI discussion. And I know that's nothing related to what we were talking about, but
But it does play into everything, right? Because we see the impact of AI in all of these different situations. Like, I'm sure that it's somehow going to be used. Like, isn't CGI and AI all connected? We'll see it in the movies and
right, yeah, no, I think mostly my take on it is something that resonated with me was a recent video that Brandon Sanderson did explaining specifically art and content that's in books. His take on it was he showed, a sketch that's in his book, and he talked about how he worked with an artist for an extensive amount of months and they went back and forth. And yes, gave this man the prompt, gave him the changes like an AI artist would do into these softwares, but he 100% stands behind that this is someone's art, and he labels it them, gives them their time to shine, gives them their credit in the book. And it's one thing to put in a prompt, you're an art director, but then are you the artist? And so it's like this AI artist stuff is getting a little crazy, but then you can relate it to writing too. I mean, we spend hours and hours not only writing our own books, but plotting our world and then going back and editing by hand. I don't know how you do it, but I edit by hand. At least my first and second drafts or my second and third drafts are edited completely by hand, and discrediting all that work because someone put in a prompt, but also because it's taking stuff that already exists in this world and putting it together. I mean, we've already seen books and controversies that have happened this year alone where we are given this brand new book, turns out already been written by someone else.
that was crazy. Yeah, I think it's the concept of idea versus product, right? Like anyone can have an idea. I have thousands of ideas every day, but they never really pull in a product. And I think that as we talk about more and more, like AI is this learning module and it has to learn from humans. We know that. So we know that everything that AI is putting forward, it's its own creation, but it's drawing off of the creations of other people. And I think that one of the debates about AI that I find most interesting, especially in our kind of sphere, is the concept of using AI as a tool versus generative AI, right? So, like, because honestly, you can't escape AI. You search something in Google now, and the first thing that pops up is AI response. Like, there's AI has been built into so many systems, and it's influencing us in a million different ways. But there's a difference between using it as a tool to maybe begin your research or begin plotting something or, help with coming up with something simple like a name or a place or something like that versus typing a prompt in, receiving pages worth of writing and then claiming it as your own. I don't know if you remember, like at the very beginning of the year, I can't even remember the name of the book now, but a book was published that still had the chat GPT prompt at the bottom of it. So I think it's one of those things where AI can be such a helpful tool if you ignore the detrimental effects it's having on the environment. But it's also it is also stealing from creatives. And it's one of those things where I love the saying, AI was supposed to find a way to do my dishes so that I could paint more. That's what it was for. And instead, it's entering the creative space in such a negative way, and you just can't seem to escape it. Like everything becomes a debate about whether or not it's AI. Is the M dash AI? If there's this many spaces in between letters, AI must have generated it. And it's like, you can't trust anything. But I also read that it is like making people using AI means the way that we speak and the way that we write is starting to become like synchronous. Like there's less, we're seeing in papers and things that are coming forward, there's less creative difference because of the influence of AI and how AI is framing language. We're, as humans, now copying that framing, thinking that it's the correct way to frame things. So it's kind of a double-edged sword.
Right. I mean, I'm not the first one to say this, but I mean, not everyone needs to be a writer. Some of us need to be readers, some of us are artists, some of us are, it comes in any realm. Some of us are watchers, some of us are show creators, some of us are athletes, some of us are audience members. So it's like we are all trying to be writers at this point and we're taking the shortcuts, and I think that's what's having the biggest impact, and that's what the biggest controversy I think in the book community has been. But I mean, yeah, I mean, some people, you can literally just start your Booktok account and then that can be your contribution to Yeah. the book community. You can start a book club. You can, whether that be local or not. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of book swaps pop up. Like, not everyone needs to be a writer or an artist. It's great that we have the resources to do that now, but again, the shortcuts aren't going to be worth it in the end of the day because it's just discrediting the work that everyone else is doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's like if you want to write something or you want to be an author, then just write it, you know? Like I think if you have an idea and you need help fleshing it out, there are human resources for that. Talk to people, talk out loud while you wander around your kitchen, you know? Like I think anyone can be a writer if they want to be. It's just a case of just because you want to put something out, you can't go rely on generative AI. Like that doesn't make you a writer. It makes you an idealist or someone with a potentially great concept for a book, but you didn't write it. And so it's hard when then you're putting your name to something because it was your idea, but not really your content that you've created. Fun side task for anyone who's interested. Go research Alexandre Dumas, who wrote The Count of Monte Cristo, because he had a ghostwriter. His ghostwriter was a screenplay, or not a screenplay, a playwriter, because this was back in the 1800s, so there weren't televisions. But they got into a huge fight about basically this concept, not with AI, obviously, but about who gets rights to what based on what their ideas were and how they wrote it. Because this ghostwriter actually played a huge role in a lot of his writings, including The Count of Monte Cristo. So, I mean, it's an age-old debate. Now we're just having it with AI, but it is frustrating, like you said, when you're sitting down and you're writing and you write all your drafts, you edit all your drafts, and then someone's popping out 7 books a year and they're all AI generated books. But, I think if you have a creative idea, you should go with it always, but just know like just because you have an idea doesn't mean you also have the product.
Right, yeah, but I don't think AI is going away anytime soon. So if you want us to talk on it more, if you have questions, if you want to give your opinion, we can definitely talk about. We enjoy having this debate. Clearly we're not on the same sides always, so we like hearing it. I definitely have friends who are very pro AI, so I have these conversations on a daily basis with other people. So we'd love to hear from you, and that can all be found on our website.
Yeah. I think on a lighter note, I want to talk about something, fun and fresh in the book community. For all our watchers out there, listeners out there who are fans of Love Island, it's been a hard season for us this season. It was rough from the jump, and it never got easier at all throughout the 6 weeks of it. But I would say one of the greatest things to come out of it is Jeremiah's book club. Jeremiah, for those who are not familiar, went through the worst, maybe 2.5. I don't know how long he was in the middle, 3 weeks max. Um, but one of the things that people realized when he was in the villa was that he was a big book nerd. So he had on his TikTok, he had like 44 followers and was reviewing books for them all the time. Not the books I would have thought he was reviewing, like things like Atomic Habits and stuff like that. So very like just surprising reads, but also very exciting. And so as soon as he came out the villa, he started a book club. And I just wanted to bring this up because I think it's funny that you had mentioned Song of Achilles being your one of your reads of the year. And the first book in Jeremiah's book club is Song of Achilles. So I think, we're seeing this sort of like interest in what I am terming future modern classics. I think that the Song of Achilles isn't like, reinventing anything. It's telling an age-old story from a different perspective. But I do think like for years to come, it'll be something that appears on people's must-read lists. I think that Madeline Miller has cemented herself as a very impressive author. And I think that like it also goes to show that sometimes the best reads aren't necessarily the newest reads, I think. We've talked about the brand new books that we read this year. So we talked about the indie books that just came out, and then I mentioned Sunrise on the Reaping. Um, but I think like as we're kind of moving throughout the year and thinking more about like what we're looking forward, but as we're wrapping up this kind of first half of the year and getting ready for fall, another book that we both read that I think falls into the indie author category, and a book that I think is a great way to kind of wrap up the first half of the year is No Shot by Catherine L. And we're very, very excited and very lucky to have her come and chat with us in our next episode. So I don't want to dive too much into her book. I want to let her kind of talk about it, talk about her process with everyone. But I do think that, like, as we're seeing these great new books come up and we're seeing these kind of older books have a bit of a resurgence, it brings us into an interesting fall. There's a lot of really cool books up and coming, I think, that we're all kind of waiting on. And then we're also getting closer and closer to my favorite season where it's totally all right to be reading really gory horror or also reading Cinnamon Bun Cafe. I love the fall book.
Definitely gonna get into the pumpkin spice. I don't remember what it's called at the moment. The Laura Gilmore books are on my list. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you haven't already, Catherine's No Shot is Catherine's second book in her series, the Toronto Tundra series. So definitely grab Faded Shot, which is the first one, and then No Shot if you want to get ahead on the reading, get ahead on the questions. We have also a section on our Patreon for you to submit your questions before we interview Catherine, so we can get your questions to her as well for her debut. Um, her debut on a pod, her debut interview, her debut on podcasting, I guess.
We're very lucky to have an exclusive interview with Catherine. Her very first interview is going to be with us, and we're feeling very humbled and lucky and excited to get to kind of chat with her one on one as someone that we've been connected with for a long time now through the Booktok community and through Instagram. It'll be really great to sit down and chat with her about her writing process, about the future of her books, and just kind of see where she's at as an author and a reader.
I think I'm gonna take like her fun and flirty writing into my fall TBR again with Laura Gilmore's stuff. But I think I at first I we've talked about this. I wanted to do Dark Academia this fall, and I've read a little bit this summer, and I think it's just a very serious, sometimes heavy genre. Obviously Babel is gonna be on the top of my list, but also I think I'm gonna do more like witchy books. So I'm compiling my list now. So if you guys have recommendations for that, you go ahead and, private message me on my accounts or through our shared Ink and Insight account. But Spell Shop, the Spell Shop's going to be on there. The book that you got me in Scotland, I don't remember the title of it at the moment.
The Last Witch of
Yes, I'm going to definitely
Scotland.
read that this fall. And I think that's just going to kind of be my light and fluffy, witchy sort of fall. Leading into my Christmas my Christmas phase.
Yeah. I love it. I am kind of shifting the opposite direction this fall. I think that last fall I had a very light, fluffy kind of reading list. I also read a surprising amount of fantasy last fall, but this fall my goal is to dive straight into anything gothic, anything sort of with a horror twist on it. Classics wise, I'm finally going to read Rebecca. I've had that on my list to read forever, but didn't get around to it. And along the lines of Gothic, I would really like to read Mexican Gothic. Um, I also need to finish the Shepherd King duology so that I have an excuse to read The Night and the Moth, is really where I was getting with that one. But I think that this was all inspired by a short story that I read recently called I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. It's a very, speaking of AI, actually, a perfect segue into like the conversation about AI as well. It was written in the mid 1900s. I want to say 1960s, 1970s, about virtually a sentient computer that begins torturing people. And that has nothing to do with Gothic at all, but it was kind of my brief, quick introduction to these sort of horror shorts. And I realized that that was kind of the vibe. I was looking for something eerie, something a little like twisted that messes with your mind a bit. Um, I'm not really a sci-fi person, so I didn't really want to dive too hard into like the sci-fi side of it, but I definitely kind of want to chase those vibes in more of a like lush, lyrical, romantic sort of way. So that's what my fall is going to be. And then hopefully we'll palate cleanse for Christmas. Maybe we'll read something silly about elves. I don't really know what Christmas themed books there are other than that Christmas smut book that you read last year.
I think there's a lot coming out. Laura Gilmore, I think, has one that's coming out, which has kind of motivated me to read her other ones because I didn't get on the bandwagon last fall. Mostly because I couldn't find the book as soon as it became popular. I couldn't buy it anywhere.
Well, it's out on tables now.
Okay. I got it early.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I'm excited to hear what you have to say. I mean, as I don't read that genre at all.
I think it's going to be nice because it'll be a very different fall. I feel like we were kind of reading the same books in the same circle-ish. Obviously, several different ones, and I think you crushed past my reading list anyway, this first half. So I think we should have some interesting combos since we'll be kind of on opposite ends of the fall spectrum this fall.
I'm looking forward to seeing what other people are going to be leaning towards as well. Again, I don't know how to predict trends, so I don't know what's going to be super trendy this fall, but it was very exciting to be able to see it happening basically live, like as it unfolded in the books that became popular basically overnight because they're fall themed, and I'm excited to see what happens. I know there's a lot of I've been told at least about a couple witch books that are coming out that I need to check out. As soon as I tell somebody I'm reading a specific genre, they have lots of recommendations for me, so I'm super excited. But
Yeah. Well, I think if you guys have any recommendations for your fall reads, please let us know. You can find us using the links on our website. That'll take you over to our exclusive Patreon page where you can ask us questions, you can leave comments, you can let us know what you're doing, what you're reading, what you hope to read. We both have extensive TBRs, and we're transitioning into a life where we treat it like a menu and we select what we want when we want. So I would love to add whatever your recommendations are. As I mentioned, if you have anything gothic and a little creepy, that's what I'm looking for right now. But I'll always take a good cinnamon roll shop, blah, 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 as a palate cleanse. I love those books as well. So please go over there, check us out. You can find bonus content. You'll also be able to find some exclusive content from our interview with Catherine. And anything else that you possibly need from us is all linked on our website. All right. That's a wrap on our whirlwind tour through books we loved, the moments we side-eyed, and the book news we couldn't not talk about.
whether you agreed, gasped, or screamed into your pillow, thanks for hanging out with us while we unpack the literary highs and lows.
If today's episode gave you a few titles to add to your TBR or a few to strategically avoid, then we've done our job.
To follow the show, leave a rating if you're feeling generous, and if you want even more behind the scenes chaos, spicy opinions, or creative rants, you know where to find us, like Joe said on our website, where the insiders are voting on our September book club pick right now.
Until next time, keep reading weird stuff, take breaks from book talk when your eyeball twitches, and remember the best drama is usually fictional. So, Daisy, today I want to talk about your favorite reads of 2025.